Bahamas Archaeology Sleep Story. Archaeologist Field Experience Nocturne Expeditions. Tonight's nocturne expedition brings us to the quiet coastline of the Bahamas. Our story unfolds near the ruins of Clifton Plantation, where archaeological research once took place along a stretch of calm Caribbean shoreline. The morning on the island begins slowly. A warm breeze moves across the beach, carrying the faint scent of salt from the sea, while palm leaves shift gently above the sand, and the water stretches outward in wide turquoise sheets that reflect the sky like polished glass. The ocean here moves with a slow and patient rhythm. Small waves slide quietly onto the beach, pause for a moment against the sand, and then retreat again toward the deeper water. The cycle repeats itself endlessly, wave after wave. The archaeological project taking place along this shoreline was organized through the University of California, Berkeley. Researchers had come to study the remains of a plantation community that once existed in this landscape centuries earlier. Stone foundations still marked the ground where buildings had once stood. Fragments of walls appeared among grasses and palms. Old pathways could still be traced beneath the sand where people once walked every day. Archaeology often begins with these quiet traces, small fragments left behind by ordinary life, pieces of pottery, broken tools, animal bones. Each fragment holds part of a much larger story. My own work on the project focused on a specialized field called faunal archaeology, or osteoarchaeology, which is the study of animal remains recovered from archaeological sites. These bones reveal important details about how people once lived. They tell us what animals were hunted, what fish were caught, and how communities used the natural environment around them. But before archaeologists can identify those fragments, something else must exist first. A comparative faunal collection. This collection acts like a library of skeletons. Each specimen is carefully cleaned, preserved, and labeled. When archaeologists recover a fragment of bone during excavation, they compare it to the reference skeletons in the collection. A small vertebra might reveal the species of fish that was eaten. A fragment of jaw might identify a mammal. Even a tiny bone can reveal the story of a meal shared centuries earlier. But building that collection requires patience, and sometimes a bit of creativity. A zoo archaeologist needs many specimens, different species, different ages, male animals and female animals, large specimens and small ones. Each skeleton adds another point of comparison. Sometimes the specimens came from fishermen. Local fishermen understood the surrounding waters far better than visiting archaeologists ever could. Occasionally, they would walk along the beach carrying fish caught in deeper water. Each fish represented another opportunity to expand the comparative collection. The workstation along the beach was simple. A small cooking fire burned beside several metal pots. Inside the pots, water warmed slowly above the flames. Steam rose into the warm Caribbean air as the breeze moved steadily across the shoreline. Fish specimens were placed into the boiling water. The heat gradually separated flesh from bone. The process was quiet and careful. Nothing in faunal archaeology was rushed. While the pot simmered, the beach remained peaceful. Palm leaves rustled softly in the distance. Fishing boats drifted slowly across the horizon. Occasionally, a fisherman would return carrying another specimen. Each arrival added another layer to the growing collection. The fish were placed carefully into the water. Steam rose gently as the heat continued its work. The scent of salt water mixed with the breeze from the sea. Gradually, the bones began to appear clearly. The heat loosened the remaining tissue. Vertebrae separated from the flesh. Jawbones became visible. Small, delicate fin rays revealed themselves one by one. When the boiling process finished, the bones were removed carefully. Each specimen was rinsed in clean water. Sometimes the bones were placed briefly into diluted bleach solutions. The bleach was gentle, just strong enough to remove the last traces of organic material. Slowly, the bones became pale and clean. The structure of the skeleton appeared clearly. Vertebrae, jawbones, thin ribs, delicate fins. Each bone carried the distinctive shape of the species. The cleaned bones were then placed onto trays to dry. Rows of trays rested in the warm Caribbean air beside the beach. The breeze moved across them slowly, helping the specimens dry naturally in the sun. The ocean continued its steady rhythm nearby, wave after wave arriving quietly at the sand, then sliding gently back toward the sea. The work continued this way for hours, one specimen at a time, one skeleton after another, the comparative collection slowly growing beside the ocean. But boiling was not the only method used to prepare skeletons. Sometimes specimens were placed inside protective cages and buried underground. This method allowed nature to perform the work. Soil insects and microorganisms gradually removed the remaining tissue. Weeks later, the cages could be opened again. Inside, the skeleton remained, cleaned slowly and naturally by the earth itself. This method required patience, but patience was already part of archaeological work. Occasionally, the job of building a comparative collection led to unexpected situations. Friends and local residents sometimes brought unusual specimens. Someone might arrive with a dead animal found along the road. Another might bring a raccoon or some other small mammal. Sometimes the offering appeared simply because someone knew the archaeologist studying bones might find it useful. Over time, the unusual nature of the work earned a nickname. Some people jokingly referred to the archaeologist as La Bruja de los Huesos, the Bone Witch, someone who spent her days collecting skeletons, boiling bones beside the ocean, and building a quiet archive of animal remains. The nickname was offered with humor, but it captured something true about the strange and fascinating work of zooarchaeology, because behind every archaeological excavation lies an entire hidden world of preparation, cleaning bones, sorting specimens, studying skeletal structures, building the collections that allow archaeologists to understand the past. And while this work unfolded on the beach, the ocean continued its endless rhythm. The breeze carried the scent of salt across the sand. Palm leaves shifted gently above the shoreline. Fishing boats moved slowly across the horizon. The fire burned quietly beneath the metal pots. Steam rose into the warm island air, and the comparative collection continued to grow. One skeleton after another, each bone carefully prepared, each specimen preserved, each one waiting to help reveal the lives of people who once lived beside this same sea. And all the while, the Caribbean shoreline remained calm and steady, the breeze moving across the sand, the ocean sliding quietly against the beach, and the quiet work of archaeology unfolding slowly beside the water. Later, when the work of the morning had settled into a quiet rhythm, the beach beside Clifton Plantation seemed to slow even further. The breeze continued moving steadily across the shoreline. Palm leaves shifted gently above the sand, their long fronds brushing softly against one another in the warm island air. The ocean stretched outward in calm blue water. Small waves arrived at the shore and then drifted slowly back toward the sea. The rhythm repeated again and again, wave after wave touching the sand, then sliding quietly away. The archaeological work continued here along the coast, where the ruins of the old plantation rested among grasses and scattered stone. Low foundations still marked the places where buildings had once stood. Paths once walked by plantation residents now lay hidden beneath the sand. Archaeology often begins with these quiet traces, fragments of pottery, pieces of tools, and sometimes the bones of animals that people once hunted, caught, and ate. The study of those bones is called faunal archaeology. Zoo archaeologists examine animal remains recovered from archaeological excavations. Each bone can reveal something about how people once lived, what fish they caught, what animals were hunted, how communities used the natural world around them. But before those bones can be identified, archaeologists need something important: a comparative collection, a carefully assembled reference library of skeletons, each skeleton cleaned, labeled, and preserved. When a bone fragment appears during excavation, archaeologists compare it to the reference specimens. A single vertebra might identify a species of fish. A small fragment of jaw might reveal a mammal. Even the smallest bone can hold valuable information. But creating a comparative collection requires patience. Many specimens must be gathered. Different species, different sizes, young animals and older ones, male and female skeletons. Every specimen adds another reference point. Sometimes the specimens came from fishermen. The fishermen knew the waters surrounding the island far better than any visiting archaeologist. Occasionally they walked along the beach carrying fish caught in deeper water. Each specimen offered another opportunity to expand the collection. The beach became a quiet laboratory. A small cooking fire burned beside several metal pots. Water warmed slowly above the flames. Steam rose gently into the warm Caribbean air. Fish specimens were placed into the pot. The boiling water slowly loosened the flesh from the bones. The process was never hurried. The work required patience. While the pot simmered, the breeze moved across the sand. Palm leaves rustled softly above the shoreline. Fishing boats drifted slowly along the horizon. Sometimes a fisherman would return with another specimen, another fish caught in deeper water, another skeleton that would become part of the collection. Steam continued rising from the pot. The scent of salt water mixed with the warm wind from the sea. Gradually the bones began to appear clearly. The heat separated the remaining tissue. Vertebrae became visible. Small, delicate fin bones revealed themselves. Jawbones appeared among the other skeletal pieces. When the boiling process finished, the bones were removed carefully. Each specimen was rinsed in clean water. Sometimes the bones were placed briefly into diluted bleach solutions. The bleach removed the last traces of organic material. Slowly, the bones became pale and clean. The structure of the skeleton appeared clearly: vertebrae, jawbones, small ribs, delicate fins. Each bone carried the distinctive shape of the species. The cleaned bones were then placed onto trays to dry. Rows of trays rested beside the beach. The warm Caribbean breeze helped dry the specimens naturally. The ocean continued its steady rhythm nearby, wave after wave arriving quietly at the sand, then sliding slowly back toward the sea. The work continued this way for hours, one specimen at a time, one skeleton after another, the comparative collection slowly growing beside the ocean. But boiling was not the only method used to prepare skeletons. Sometimes specimens were placed into protective cages and buried underground. Nature performed the work slowly. Insects and soil organisms gradually removed the remaining tissue. Weeks later, the cages could be opened again. Inside, the skeleton would remain, cleaned naturally by the earth itself. This method required patience, but patience was already part of archaeological work. Over time, the unusual nature of the work earned a nickname. Some people jokingly referred to the archaeologist as La Bruja de los Huesos, the Bone Witch, someone who spent long days collecting skeletons, preparing bones beside the sea, and building a quiet archive of animal remains. The nickname carried humor, but it also captured something true about the strange work of zoo archaeology. Because behind every archaeological excavation lies a hidden world of preparation, cleaning bones, sorting specimens, studying skeletal structures, building the collections that allow archaeologists to understand the past. And while the work unfolded quietly along the beach, the ocean continued its endless rhythm. The breeze moved across the sand. Palm leaves shifted softly above the shoreline. Fishing boats moved slowly across the horizon, and the work of archaeology continued patiently beside the sea. As the day slowly came to an end, the beach beside Clifton Plantation grew quiet again. The fire beneath the metal pot burned lower. Only small embers remained glowing softly beneath the sand. The trays of bones rested nearby, drying slowly in the warm evening air. The breeze continued moving across the shoreline. Palm leaves shifted gently above the beach. The ocean stretched outward beneath the fading light. Small waves arrived quietly at the sand, then drifted slowly back toward the sea. The rhythm continued without hurry. The work of the day had finished. The specimens had been cleaned. The skeletons had been carefully prepared. The comparative collection had grown a little larger. Each specimen carefully labeled, each bone placed into its proper place. Now the beach returned to stillness. The breeze carried the scent of salt across the sand. Palm leaves rustled softly overhead. Fishing boats moved slowly across the distant horizon. The ocean remained calm. The same waves that touched the sand tonight had touched this shoreline for centuries. Long before archaeologists arrived, long before the plantation was built, the beach had always belonged to the sea. Now the tools were packed away. The specimens rested safely in their trays. The fire had grown quiet. The breeze moved gently across the beach. The ocean continued its endless rhythm, wave after wave touching the sand, then sliding quietly back toward the sea. The island settled slowly into evening. Stars began to appear above the water. One by one, they filled the sky. The breeze remained soft and steady. Palm leaves shifted gently in the night air. The ocean continued its quiet movement beside the shore, and the work of archaeology rested peacefully beside the sea. The light begins to shift again, so subtly at first, you almost don't notice it. The brightness softens, edges blur slightly, colors deepen into something warmer, slower. The work around you has already begun to quiet. Tools are set down one by one, not all at once. But in that unspoken rhythm the group seems to share. A brush rests gently on the table, a trowel placed beside it, hands dusted clean with slow, absent movements. No one rushes to leave. There is no signal, no announcement, just a collective understanding. that the day has reached its natural end. You take one last look at the ground in front of you, the place where you worked, where layers revealed themselves little by little, nothing forced, nothing taken too quickly. You straighten slowly, your body aware now of its own quiet tiredness, not heavy, not drained, just complete. The air has cooled slightly. The breeze moves more easily now, carrying the scent of salt more clearly from the water, as if the ocean has stepped a little closer. You gather your things, not checking, not thinking, just moving through familiar motions, folding, placing, lifting, each action simple, effortless. The path back feels even softer beneath your feet now. The sand holds less heat, each step quieter than before, as though the island itself is settling with you. Ahead, the sky opens, and there it is. The horizon stretches wide, endless, uninterrupted. The sun lowering slowly into the water, not dropping, not disappearing, just easing downward without urgency. Colors begin to spread, soft gold, deepening into amber, then into shades of rose and quiet orange, blending gently into one another, without edges, without contrast, just a slow, continuous change. You stop near the shoreline, no need to get closer. The sound of the water is enough. Waves folding in and out, steady, rhythmic, unchanged. The surface of the ocean reflects the light, a long, shifting path of gold stretching toward you, breaking softly with each movement of the tide. You breathe in, cooler now, salt, air, distance, and out, slowly, as the day releases its final light. There is nothing left to do, nothing left waiting. The work is done, the day is complete. The sun lowers further, half now beneath the horizon, then less and less, until only a soft glow remains, lingering just for a moment before fading. And even after it disappears, the light does not leave all at once. It softens, dims, settles gently into dusk. You stand there a little longer, not watching anymore, just being, held in that quiet space between day and night. The water continues its steady rhythm. The air moves softly around you, and your body follows, slowing, settling, letting go. There is nowhere else you need to go tonight. Nothing waiting for you, nothing unfinished, just the quiet, the rhythm of the water, and the slow, gentle fading of the light.